Hi everyone, welcome and thank you for joining us today. My name is Jean, the Digital Event Coordinator at Connecting Up and TechSoup New Zealand. We are part of the Info Exchange Group, a not-for-profit social enterprise that tackles the biggest social challenges by creating use of technology. Today, I'm very excited to welcome you to join the Cultivating an Online Community to encourage people to give with Samara Gento, the digital fundraising strategist at Marlene Communications. Samara is an experienced digital storyteller, having worked in digital marketing for the government and NFP sectors for over 10 years. She has a track record of developing and implementing national digital marketing strategies that increase the online donations and improve digital communications with donors. Samaras was the digital lead for Vinny's CEO Sleep Out and Vinny's national appeals including Christmas and Winter. Throughout her experience, Samara has worked on digital acquisition, digital content creation and planning, strategy development, and implementations. So before we begin, let's start with a bit of housekeeping. All lines are muted, so if you have any technical issues, please type it into the questions box, and I'll be here to assist you. If you have any questions during the sessions, please also type it into the questions box, and Samara will answer them by the end of the webinar. We really encourage you to ask as many questions as possible, so no questions is silly, and please note that your questions and comments will not be appear to the entire group. If you're on Wi-Fi connections and have multiple programs open, this can sometimes affect the quality of the webinar. So please try to close all the programs for the best experience. Please note that this webinar is being recorded. A link with the recording and the slides will be sent to you in 1 to 2 business days. Finally, I would like to remind you that there's a short survey at the end of the sections. So please help us to complete the survey for an even better experience in the future. All right, enough for me. Now I would like to pass to Samara for the sections. Thank you.
And hi everyone, welcome to today's webinar. Before I start, I'm just going to, change slides. So in the spirit of reconciliation, Marlin acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. So my name's Samara. I work at Marlin Communications as a digital fundraising strategist. And I've got my colleague Tim in here because he helped me put the presentation together today. And he is also a digital marketing strategist at Marlin. Marlin is an agency that works specifically with nonprofits. We're a team of strategists, creatives, project managers, developers and digital experts that have all made a conscious decision to specialize in the not-for-profit space. And as a side note, we are currently hiring for a range of positions. So if you are interested, feel free to check out our website. So today I'm going to cover off a couple of topics that really bring together how to cultivate your online community, priming them to give for maybe your next appeal or giving day, or maybe even a community fundraising event. So we'll go over building your online community, creating content that builds trust, what you then do with that content, so content marketing, and then also what you can do post receiving a donation to prime them for the next time you might ask for a gift. Online community. There are a lot of different ways to build your online community, and what I'll go through in the next few slides is actually a few passive ways you can do it, so quite free for you to do, particularly if you're from a small nonprofit, and some more active ways you can do it. So these are kind of a few key things that we often recommend to clients to help grow your email database and your social media community. So the first one, go back. The first one is using your best tool, which is often your website. So when someone visits your website, from there, how can they connect with your organization to find out more? Do you have a form to sign up to receive regular comms like an e-newsletter? And are there links to your social media channels? And I don't mean down in the footer where people might never get to, because we know people kind of bounce from websites the further they move down web pages, but in more appropriate sections. So if you have a section on your homepage that talks about media releases and you often send those out, why not make sure that the list or the link, to sign up to get that comms is ready and available right there. Same with social media channels. If you use Twitter as a platform to often provide updates, why not provide a link to that in a more relevant spot than just in the footer of your website? Another thing you can do is actually use your website analytics to assess what were your most popular pages over the last 12 months. So maybe picking out your top 10, and through that content, seeing where is there an opportunity to link people to sign up to the e-newsletter or links to your social media. So again, bringing it out of the footer up into a more relevant, higher position within the content on your website. There is opportunities with staff and volunteers, and how are they currently encouraged to connect with your organisation online. So we know that there are life cycles of volunteers and employees. Often volunteers join at different life stages. So your organisation might be very aware of the life stage in which volunteers join you. So you've got young people before they have families, often volunteer at uni or with friends. Then when they start to have their families, they start to volunteer for groups that are related to their children, so schools, sports, things like that, scouts, activity groups. And then once the kids are older and then they move towards retirement, their volunteering changes again, and they might volunteer for op shops, churches, museums, things like that. So volunteers very rarely stay with an organisation for their entire life. So connecting with them early on is a really good opportunity that they might become a giver in the future. And much like staff, they actually become your biggest cheerleaders online, and they will organically push out a lot of the content you're posting on your social channels for you. So making sure that employees and volunteers know where to connect. Obviously, that's maybe a conversation with HR, or maybe you have an intranet where you can put that information, but there's definitely an opportunity there. The other opportunity is beneficiaries. Now, this will totally depend on your organisation and your relationship with your beneficiaries. May not be appropriate for everyone. There are organisations like, for example, Starlight Children's Foundation. They definitely are happy to connect with their beneficiaries online. Other hospital foundations as well. And so that's totally up to your discretion. But often those beneficiaries, once they move to a different stage of life, are very happy to come back and give financially to organisations that have helped them. So again, it's kind of bringing them on that journey, connecting with them online, so that when they are ready to give, they give to you. If you don't already have a Google Grant, this should definitely be your number one piece of homework for today, is to go and apply for one. We often do these presentations and we still hear that people don't have these. There is a bit of paperwork involved. There is some documents you need to get, but it's free advertising money. So we definitely recommend that you go and do this. The Google Grant can be your way of increasing your website traffic, which then in turn will increase people who follow you in social media and people who sign up to your email comms. So it's definitely a worthwhile exercise. It is one of the first things that gets deprioritized in a charity, and I know that from my own experience. But when you get $10,000 worth of free spend a month, it's definitely worth prioritizing. It also gets deprioritized because people don't necessarily have the skills to manage it, but there's a lot of free online training that Google provide themselves. You can get a Google account manager to help you. So we definitely recommend that you invest time here, because this will help grow your online communities. Is creating content on your website that is useful, and content that your Google Grant and search engines can use to actually direct more people to your website, in turn building your online communities. So depending on your organization, creating content as often as twice a month can be enough. Content can be things like case studies, how-to resources, media releases, research articles, information pages, things like that. This content will also go on to help you in other ways, which we'll cover off a little bit later. But content creation should definitely be a priority. Is actively posting on your social media channels. And I choose the word actively on purpose. I'm sure your organization, like many, has one or two channels that are maybe quite neglected, or maybe you've inherited these channels when starting your role, so no judgment here. And it's kind of hard to invest in every single channel, rather than, instead of just posting the same content across all of them, being content appropriate to those channels. So there are some options there. So what you could do is actually cull those channels you don't use, make the decision, okay, we don't use Twitter in the right way, let's cut it out. There may be some political issues with that internally. So another option you have is to actually just not link to it. Because why would you link to a social media channel for someone to connect with that you actually don't use very often? An example is YouTube channels. Most charities or organizations have them because that's where we host our video content, but we embed it in EDMs on the websites. We don't actually want people to follow us on those channels because we don't post often enough. We don't actually go in there often enough to reply to comments. So we don't want to actually give them the option that that's where they need to connect with us. We want to only give them the option where you are. So if Facebook is your primary channel, focusing on Facebook. If it's Facebook and Instagram, listing them both. But there's definitely no need to list all of them if you're not able to put the resources and energy into those channels. So that's just something to keep in mind. That way you're building your online community in the right place for your organization. Why are we not moving to the next slide? Here we go. Okay, so now we get into creating content that builds trust. If marketers or fundraisers can promote an organization's authenticity through branded storytelling, it can help donors trust that organization and develop a long-lasting relationship. So I've got a few really practical examples of what other organizations are doing to create impactful content to people who are either donors or prospective donors. So we'll just go through those. So the first example is an email from Wayside Chapel. If you don't know Wayside Chapel, they are an NFP in Sydney that supports people experiencing homelessness. So Graham Long, who's a former pastor of Wayside Chapel, actually started this regular email to a small group of supporters, and he called them the inner circle. So he would sit at his desk, write out this personal email to this small group of people. And as he started sending this email, actually the list of people he emailed started to grow really organically. Friends and family people on the list started sharing it with other people, and their list got bigger and bigger. Graham actually used this email to share really beautiful stories of the people that he met, the triumphs they had as a community, such as opening new services, people getting into long-term housing. And then he also shared when they had losses. So they'd have members of the community who might pass away that have been part of their community for 10 years. And he would share these losses and what it meant to them, what it meant to their community. It's a really simple piece of content. You can see it's not jazzed up. It's just got the Wayside Chapel logo at the top. Occasionally they might have an image at the very bottom promoting something or a link or two in the copy. But at its heart, it's just an email from one person to another. So really, really simple. And how it organically built up this community of people, it just kind of organically built up this donor base as well. So it was a really, really easy, beautiful way to kind of get more people as part of their inner circle, as they call it. The other example on the right is a Facebook post by the Prostate Cancer Foundation of Australia. Another really simple piece of content where they've taken a bunch of photos of their nurses, put it all together with, say, a Canva account. And if you don't have a Canva account, you can get one for free as an NFP, so definitely check that out. And it's really simple. It just thanks nurses for their impact. This is related to their telehealth service where people can connect, people going through a prostate cancer diagnosis can connect with nurses. Really simple and easy. This piece of content organically reached over 7,000 people and had almost 550 engagements. So if one piece of content you've already built quite a nice remarketing pool in terms of 550 people you can retarget just because they engaged with that content. and potentially thousands of new people who hadn't engaged with PCFA before. So that is a great example of content. Another example from Facebook is about 3 years ago, the Australian Ballet did a series of short videos. They're about 15 to 30 seconds long. The A to Z or Z of ballet moves, really short, simple pieces of content, 15 to 30 seconds. They had 500,000 views and thousands of engagements. Another example of really simple content that resonated, but then went to a wider group of people because of sharing and commenting, which opened up their remarketing audience later. And our final example is a website. So this is Blue Knot. They empower people dealing with complex trauma. Part of their website has a lot of resources around this, and a lot of this can obviously be used in content marketing, building up the trust and capacity that people have in Blue Knot as an organization, because they offer research, fact sheets, videos, all sorts of different things. And then those can be repurposed not only on social, but in email and SMS and all that sort of stuff. And that didn't happen overnight. Something for you guys to know, it all starts with just one resource and then slowly building on it. You might have your appeal DM packs where you have rational lift that could be repurposed into a resource. So always thinking about how what you're already creating can be turned into something you can use online to create trust with the people who may donate to you in the future, and show capacity of your organization. To creating content pillars. How do we know what is the best content to create for our organization to inspire people to give when we ask for that donation? We have this table, and this is an exercise you can do within your organization, just taking the top headers, and it's going through what is the goal of the content you're putting out is the first one. So it's as simple as, you want to increase donations? Do you want to activate more fundraisers? Do you want to get more people to access your services? Obviously, we're focusing on increasing donations for this webinar, but there are clearly some other options that you can go for. Next is, what is the pain point of people not reaching your goal, or of you not reaching your goal? So if we use donations as an example, maybe you're getting an impression that people are making excuses because they don't understand what your organization does. Maybe you have low brand awareness. They don't have the time. Maybe your donation form is really, really long because you're using an old system, or money. So maybe the dollar handles could use improvement if it feels like you're asking for $1,000 donation, you're not offering a lower price point. So that's just something to consider. And how will your content then overcome that pain point? Your solution. So how is your content the solution to this pain point to reach your goal? So useful content that addresses the obstacles but also shows impact and gives meaningful reasons for people to donate. And then at the very end of it, how are you going to measure it all to know that you actually reached your goal, or you're actually getting to a level of success? So this could be a super long section, right? We could have 20 data points that go into engagement rate increase, open rates on emails increase, but we would recommend you keep it simple. All you want to see is increased donations from this content, or all you want to see is increased email signups. Maybe have 3 at the most, but definitely keep it super simple and potentially high level, depending on your organization. You kind of fill out this bit, it's kind of like your SWOT, I suppose. Take everything above and you can put it into a 1-sentence content strategy. So you could easily take the sentence I have written here, switch it out how you like. So organization will increase donations by giving people meaningful reasons to get involved with useful and inspiring content. Again, if you're using donations, it's there, but you could switch that out. Organization will increase volunteer numbers by giving people meaningful reasons to get involved. So it can clearly be tweaked for whatever your goal is. And into the actual pillars or categories or themes or whatever you would like to call them. What I've added in here is kind of very simplified. You don't have to use these headings, but they might be a good starting point for you. You can customize these. You can have more than 3, you could have less than 3. But we just felt this was kind of a good place to start. and will hopefully give you some food for thought to create this in your organization. So the first one is kind of starting very top level, our world. How does your organization change the world, or how does it hope to change the world? For example, if your organization is focused on homelessness, maybe your mission is that no one is ever without a home. So it's basically eradicating homelessness. Content in this pillar could be related to policy, reform, national budget, research, all that sort of stuff that kind of speaks to this is the mission of our organization, is to basically no one is homeless. The second one is our community. So what is the impact of your organization in the community? So we know what the impact is on a world scale. This is what you hope to eradicate or solve or cure. But in your community, what is it that your organization does? So an example is the programs that your organization runs. Maybe it's campaigns, like even community fundraising campaigns have an impact in the community. RSPCA, for example, Do Million Paws Walk. It's a very physical, in-person event that communities really come together around. Same as Relay for Life, again, very similar. We've got donations in there. These can be monetary or even physical. So Share the Dignity, for example, take feminine hygiene products. You could be promoting that on social and being like, look at this amazing drop-off we just had of feminine hygiene products that will go out to the people we support. Volunteer stories, they can also be really great for organic reach because all volunteers have friends and family that are likely to like and share and tag and all those things. And then we just wanted to add in there grounding all of that content with facts or figures. So if you were, for example, using the donation example, feminine hygiene products have been donated because we support 50,000 women a year access, these products. So grounding it in those facts, very similar to a rational lift in a direct mail, just provides the rational element of why your organization exists and why it's there to provide these services. Just helps connect someone when they are thinking or going through that decision-making process to make a donation. Oh yeah, I know what these guys do and I know why they do it, because all that information is wrapped up in that piece of content. The next section is our everyday. So this is a bit of a looser section. You can kind of have fun with this bit. How can individuals embody your organization's mission or ethos in their everyday? So examples are, content that's inspiring. It could be quotes, it could be uplifting articles and things like that. So it just gives you a bit of space to have a mix in the content that you're putting out to people. But some rules to live by when you are creating these pieces is that every piece of content will, one, give value to the audience by being relevant and helpful, but also addressing the pain points that we discussed before. And two, include a clear and direct call to action. And that doesn't have to be donate today, sign up today. It can be as simple as comment, let us know what you think, or click here to read the article, or share this with a friend, or tag 5 friends who would be interested in this event, that sort of stuff. Once you have all of this amazing content that you're generating, or your comms or your marketing team is generating, how do we get it in front of the right people, getting them ready to give? So the example I have is tax, because Christmas is almost here and I'm sure all your Christmas appeals are sorted and on their way, and direct mails are hitting inboxes in the next couple of weeks. So say you have your tax appeal. Generally, we plan out our tax appeals. We know what the theme's going to be, the case study, before it happens, obviously. So for this example, our tax appeal is women and children escaping family violence into homelessness. So we know that we're going to have our website, emails, and online ads are going to be referencing all this. We know there's going to be a key image of a woman and child. Call to action is going to be donate to help them. So what do we need to do to actually get our online community ready for when we come out with this ask, particularly those who have not donated to us before? We need to think about what is all the content we can serve them in the lead up to actually get them ready, to actually be part of that decision-making process, that when you come out for the ask, they're going to go, oh yeah, I read that article. I need to donate to these guys. Or, oh yeah, I saw they have this amazing service and they've been helping all these women and children. I'm going to make a donation. So we like to have an exercise where we kind of list it out, or put everything on the table, and then you can kind of cull it away if you need to. So some examples for this particular tax appeal is just highlighting your services, super simple. Including stats on how many women and children actually access your service every year, so people understand what the need is before you come for the ask. Highlighting volunteers who give their time to that service. So you could be highlighting Edna, who cooks meals at the local shelter, and she's been doing it for 20 years or 10 years. And her favorite part of her volunteering is getting to talk with the women and the kids. Sharing news articles on maybe family violence in Australia, maybe it's on the rise, so we're sharing that information so they can see it's actually not just coming from you, it's coming from media and other sources, that this is a problem, so that they understand that exists before your appeal comes out. Outcomes of your service, so how many women and children maybe moved to safe permanent housing, think about the outcomes of your organisation, and then testimonials are obviously always great. So it's really thinking about what is all that content beforehand I could be sending out to make sure they are ready and confident in our organisation when we ask them for that gift. Which channels are you going to use? So we know you have a website, email, hopefully, social. It's kind of breaking down that content. Okay, what can we put on the website? Okay, in the email, we can resource this article on the website. In social, what are the maybe pictures and volunteers you're going to share? So bringing it all together in a bit of a channel mix. And I'm just going to focus on social for the next little bit, because website, you're relying on the traffic. Email, you can segment people based on your kind of variables within your database. And social has some real potential here. In this example from PCFA that I had before, say PCFA is in the lead up to a giving day, and this giving day is actually going to support their telehealth service. So perfect sharing the nurses that actually work for their telehealth service in the lead up to that. This beautiful picture, these lovely nurses, everyone loves a nurse. So who might you want to see this before your appeal goes live? So we have our warm audience, people who follow and engage our page on Facebook and Instagram, for example. We can then update our audience lists in Facebook from our CRM list, so making sure that the people who are potentially maybe sitting on our e-newsletter list but haven't yet donated are in that data. And then the other potential is to find new people before your appeal goes out. So looking at lookalike groups, lookalikes from your warm audience and your contact list, and also interest groups related to what this post is about. So already we can target nursing interests, prostate cancer interests, cancer, whatever else is mentioned in this post, we can look at those groups. And that's potentially going to bring a whole bunch of new people to your organisation before your appeal goes out. And just to add, there's two ways you could really promote your content on Facebook. We all know about boosted posts. It's a great, quick and easy solution, particularly in a fast-paced small NFP. But what we would actually recommend is that you look at creating these posts in Ads Manager and ad sets. It gives you much greater control on how many audiences can see this content, because in boosted posts you can usually only select one audience, and then you're limited by that. Whereas this is such a great piece of content, I want these 3, 4, 5, 6 audiences to see this. I don't want to be limited by just that one. So you can actually set it up in Ads Manager against multiple ad sets. So definitely recommend you having a look at that. There's some great articles online that you can have a look at, or just have a Google. If you have a Facebook account manager, chat to them about it. But this is a really great way to get your content in front of more eyes rather than just using the boosted post feature. And then when you are getting it out there, the paid objective is obviously very important. Now, the donation, purchase, and lead form, not relevant for this, because we're actually priming people. We're not going direct for the ask just yet. So we ignore that. And then we're left with, I don't know if you can see my mouse, we're then left with reach and awareness. So this is just how many people's feeds it appears in. Post engagement means we're encouraging people to like, comment, share. which they can fall into remarketing audiences. And then we have click, so web traffic, link click, that sort of stuff. And they can also fall into remarketing audiences. So depending on what the content is, post engagement and click are actually quite a sweet spot. You could go between the two. And then we know when people new to your organization engage with that content, they can be popped into a remarketing audience when your appeal starts up. So that's a really good place to be. You also don't have to spend a lot of money in those areas. It could be as small as $100 a month, and you could pop a whole bunch of content into ad sets and just see what happens as a test. Obviously, the more money you spend, the more people, but even as a starting point, $100 over 4 weeks would be a really good place to start. So something to consider. I'm going to skip through that because that is not important. So post donation. So you did all that hard work right before your appeal went out. Your appeal went out, you got some new donors, amazing. What happens post donation is just as important as what happened before and during. So it's a bit of a delay, sorry. You want to ensure your donor and online community understands the impact of them supporting your organization. So if you were a donor, you've donated, it's your first donation to the organization, and then you hear nothing for 6 months until the next appeal, it's not a great experience. It's very unlikely you'll go back to them. So we want to make sure they always feel like their donation had an amazing impact. And you can actually do this through content as well, and then it helps cultivate them for the next time you go. So another example from BCFA, I'm clearly playing favorites today. They actually hit a bit of a landmark with their PET-CT scanning for men with prostate cancer. It's something they shared on their organisation page. Their CEO has done a bit of home art with this piece of paper, and we did it. Very lo-fi, very charity, which I love, and we know other people love it. But what you can't see, because my screenshot is so tiny, I'm so sorry, is that this post was shared into a community fundraising Facebook group by the person that all those community fundraisers have been dealing with during that event. So her name is Jo Jones. She's actually the signatory on all the emails that went out. She was active in the Facebook group while it was going. And so she shares this post and she writes this really lovely message. I don't like to bug you all with too many posts, but I like to share the wins because the wins are only possible because of supporters like you. This will make a huge difference for men and their treatment. Very, very simple, very gratifying, very affirming to people who did the event. It would be very affirming to donors as well to think, oh my God, my money means like more men are going to survive prostate cancer. This is amazing. Or they're going to be diagnosed earlier. So it's a really simple piece of content that reinforces to them the impact that they've had and that the mission and ethos that they're a part of. So a suggestion maybe for your next appeal for the post phase is you could actually do something very similar to Wayside Chapel. A very simple plain text email from the signatory of your appeal EDM to say something like, I needed to let you know I spoke with Kathy, say she's the case study, and she's over the moon with the outpouring of support that's been shown to her and her family. She wanted me to pass on her sincerest thanks, and I wanted to let you know the money we've raised is going to help change many other women's lives. Super simple. You want it to feel like that fundraising manager literally sat down and wrote those words because they've literally gotten off the phone to Kathy. And that's a really beautiful way to reinforce your community, okay, what I've done is amazing, this is awesome, so that next time you give, they have that memory of that feeling, they want to give again, they want to change more people's lives. So that is kind of it for me. I kind of sped through that a lot faster than when I timed myself. But I am happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Samara. It's a very
worries.
informative section. So I got a couple of questions. Please allow me to bring it up. All right. And just a reminder that these sections with the presentation deck and the recording will be sent to all the audience by 1 to 2 business days. So if you have missing anything or if you would like to refresh yourself, don't hesitate to relook at it. All right, so we have one here. So Mary is asking, do you have any suggestions on the on organizing or project managing or activities rather than just a spreadsheet, I guess?
That again for me. Sorry, my headphones just cut out.
Do you
I
have, yeah,
didn't recommend AirPods. Sorry.
no worries. Do you have any suggestions on organizing or project managing or activities rather than just a spreadsheet?
Right. It's a good question, and I know from my own personal experience, it's one that you do want to find a better solution to. Um, Personally, when I was doing this sort of stuff in-house, I found spreadsheets were the best, and also collaborative sheets. So using like Google Sheets or something like that, where you still have spell check in there, which I love, and you can invite many people to either comment or edit. So I found that the best. But I reckon if there's anyone else who's listening today and they have a better solution, I would love to hear it because it's a great question.
Lovely, fantastic. And now we have another audience, Ingrid. So it's quite a long question, so I assign it to you, but I'll just read out the questions for everyone first. How important is reach for a Facebook ad? We have an agency that boosts high reach, but for example, over 30,000, but then it only converts into 5 to 10 donations. So it sounds like a very low conversion rate. So that doesn't seem like a great ROI. What should we expect in terms of donations, conversion, etc.? Are there any benchmark figures for charities in Australia and New Zealand?
That's a good question. In terms of benchmarks, there would have been benchmarks last year before Facebook made the iOS changes, or sorry, Apple made the iOS changes, which impacted Facebook.
Yep.
Since then, the all charities and even ourselves at Marlin, we've had to re-benchmark stuff, and so we've done a lot of testing since those changes to understand what are the new benchmarks. And I would say for your organisation and possibly for your partner that's helping you, it's testing those things. So if you if your priority on those booster posts is reach and you know you're getting 5 to 10 donations, then test with the next post something like engagement, or test something like web clicks or whatever clicks or
Mhm.
landing page views. Sorry. So I would say the more testing you can do to understand what works with your audience and your call to action, you can then create your own benchmarks, because we're definitely all trying to figure out what the new benchmarks are with those changes, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's really true. I think it's a good idea to really set your own benchmark because it's just so different from each company's, the size, the scales, and the objectives that you would like to reach. All right,
Absolutely.
so we got another. Oh, so Maria is very kind to say thank you. And then there's heaps of information you provided, and then she would like to view it again and take notes.
Nice.
So
Thanks, Maria.
Maria is, yeah, just giving you some compliment. Thank you for that. All right. Let me see if we got some other questions. So feel free to ask. As I said, there's no silly questions. So just whatever you think is important to you, and then it can help with your not-for-profit business. You can always raise your questions.
Actually, to expand a bit more on that benchmark question, in that um, creating your own benchmarks, particularly depending on your size of organization. If you're a very small NFP, you don't want to be benchmarked against like a Salvos or a Red Cross, who have much bigger brand awareness, and their trust is quite different. The trust score of big organizations like that compared to a much smaller organization where maybe they are one of your direct competitors, particularly if you're in the homelessness space. if you're competing with Mission Australia, their brand awareness is very different. So their benchmarks are going to be very different to yours. So definitely setting your own benchmarks is a good place to start.
Yeah, definitely. Hope that answered your questions, Ingrid. And we have Mary again here. Thanks for the Google grant information. Do you have to purchase any to get a grant?
Do not. It is all free. So
Yeah,
definitely, even if you just Google Grant application, it will take you to the page and let you know all the information that you need. You'll need a few, supporting docs to prove you're an NFP and all those things, but you don't have to pay for it at all.
absolutely. It's just basically some bonus and credit for the not-for-profit organization. So yeah, better get really utilize this like free resources.
Exactly.
All right, let me see. And there's another question from Ingrid. If our goal is to raise donations from our Facebook posts, should we always be asking in the ad for the donation, or should we be making the ask on the landing page, for example, after providing the contents of value?
That's another good
Like,
question.
which way is better?
Yeah, it definitely depends on what the content is. So if it's an appeal piece of content, then obviously it's all about people clicking through to make the donation. So asking for the donation is totally fine there. Um, in terms of like if you were just posting about the service, you don't necessarily always want to ask for the donation because people do feel like, oh, they're asking me for money again, and it makes me feel uncomfortable. I just want to learn information. So I think where you don't where you haven't actually asked directly in the post, you can then ask it on the landing page that you are taking them to if you are linking to another site. So I think that's totally fine. So if you've I keep using homelessness as an example because I clearly have that on the brain. If you're linking to a resource on your website about homelessness, having a little call out box or something there that says, and you can support us by donating today, $25 buys a sleeping bag, that's a perfect connection of cause to outcome. So you could definitely do that.
Yes, totally. All right. So I guess that's pretty much for the questions. I can see that it's a very interactive sections. We got lots of questions, and I do believe that just in case if you got more questions, just feel free to ask it right now. And then otherwise, I'll have some bonuses for everyone. So I guess all of you is seeing my screen. So it's pretty much our little promotion for tomorrow's sections. So tomorrow we got a once a year webcoin. So it's a digital marketing webcoin. It's a full day event starting from 9 a.m. to 3:30 tomorrow. We have 4 sections. It's all about digital marketing areas. So the first one is about how to get your website to perform on search engines. And we have also the second one, how to plan your website. The third one is about like if you're having like a one-man band in a digital marketing department, how can you make the best use of it? And the last section is about the most creative and effective social media content. So I would say that this once a year webcoin is a very informative sections. All the speakers are very well known and they are very expert in all these areas. I'll also put this little promotion onto the follow-up emails with the presentation today. So if you're interested, feel free to register today. All right, so before we finish, do you have anything to add, Samara?
Me, thanks everyone for watching, and yeah, I hope you found it super useful.
Thank you very much, Samara, again. And then goodbye, everyone, and then we'll see you very soon. Bye-bye.